Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so excited that you're choosing to invest an hour of learning with us today. I'm Becky Robinson, and I'm here with Yosi Amram, and we will be getting started with our event very shortly. Hi, Yosi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm delighted to be here with you, and I'm enjoying your smile. And it's yeah, I'm honored and excited and nervous at the same time. Um,
Well, we have the chance today to talk about your new book, Spiritually Intelligent Leadership, which was released in October. So I can see that many of our attendees are already starting to do what I always invite people to do, which is to say hello in the chat. We would love to have you say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from today. And if you happen to be calling in as part of your professional development, you're calling in from work, if you want to give us the name of your organization, I would be happy to give your organization a shout out if I am able. So, welcome to Christy in Dallas, to Andrea in Toronto, to Alper in Marseille, France. Hello to Gary in Orange, California, and to Crystal in Lubbock, Texas, to Daryl in Charlotte. We have a lot of familiar names in the chat. Hi, Randy in San Diego. Looks like we have a caller from India, some folks in Florida, Oregon, so a shout out to Rachel, who's in Seattle at the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle. We're so glad that you're here representing your organization today. And I see that we have someone calling in from Zeeland, Michigan, and that's a familiar town. So welcome to you, Natalie. And hello to folks in Georgia, South Carolina, and Massachusetts. So we are thrilled that you're here today. And hopefully by this opening, you are going to tell that we want to create an inclusive community in our events. And so we want to invite you throughout the event to go ahead and pop in your questions, your comments. Feel free to talk with each other, network with each other. We want to create an inclusive community, and we want this to be an engaging event. So we do want to start out with a poll this morning, but before we do that, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Kathy, who's calling in from Knoxville, Tennessee, where she's representing the remote area medical RAM, free dental, medical, and vision care across the US, which is tremendous. So, Kathy, thank you for being here with us. I'm sure that spiritually intelligent leadership will add value in the organization that you're working in. All right, so as we dive in, I want to get your quick feedback on a poll, and we would love to know from you as we get started. Before this event, had you ever heard of the concept of spiritual intelligence? So, yes, you have, no, you haven't, or you're not sure. And if you did hear about this concept of spiritually intelligent leadership before learning about today's event, you could go ahead and tell us in the chat where you heard about spiritually intelligent leadership. We would love to know. So, I'm going to give everyone just a few moments to answer that poll. And I will say, Yosi, before I met you, I had not heard of the concept of spiritually intelligent leadership, but it's added a lot of interesting fuel for thought as they think about how I want to show up in the world as a leader. So let's take a look at these results. Thanks to many of you who are giving your responses. And it looks like about half of you, 46%, had heard of the concept of spiritual intelligence before today's event. A few of you are not sure, and some of you said no. And it looks like in the chat, you'll see someone works in behavioral health, and it's a domain that's included. Someone read a book by Dana Zohar 20 years or so ago, and Stephen Covey's book, Eighth Habit, Spiritual Intelligence is included as a leader. So interesting,
awesome.
yes?
Awesome. I also see that there's an AI assistant helping someone that's responding. So that's exciting. But we'll be talking a little bit about AI and SI in a few moments here. But I'm excited that so many of you have heard of SI, and hopefully, if we gather again in 5, 10 years, many more, and most of us will be. And that's kind of what I'm working in this world, is to promote the importance of spiritual intelligence and get it to a level where it's well understood and appreciated, like emotional intelligence is. So that's delightful that already half of you are aware of it.
Yes, and your book is part of the ability to expand the ideas into the world a bit more. So, Yossi, before we dive into our conversation, and I can't wait to learn with you, I want to give our attendees, in case they don't know you, a little bit of background about you. So, for those of you who have never met Yossi before, he began his leadership journey in the Israeli military, where he received numerous awards and garnered the fastest promotion record in his regiment's history. But despite these accomplishments, the military chafed at his soul and eventually inspired his lifelong quest for more humane approaches to leadership. So, following the military, Yossi came to the United States and earned a BS and MS at MIT and an MBA from Harvard. And then later, he became the founder and CEO of two tech companies, which he led to successful IPOs, which is incredibly impressive. And then after that, Yossi went back to school and earned his PhD in clinical psychology, which led him to developing his groundbreaking work around spiritual intelligence and the associated model that he created, including this topic of spiritual intelligent leadership, which we call SI leadership. And the research has received over 1,000 citations to date. So Yossi is devoted to nurturing and awakening greater spiritual intelligence in himself and in the world. And he's been working over the years as both a therapist and a coach. And I have loved getting to know him. Yossi, I don't know how comfortable you are with me talking about all your accolades, but thanks for the chance to introduce you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored. I'm like, oh, is that me? I guess it was, huh?
It is you. And then the book as well, that I'll hold up one more time for those who haven't seen it. All right, well, let's dive in, Yossi. I know quite a few people have heard of this idea of spiritual intelligence, but for those who may not have, or for those who are really excited to learn more, could we talk for a few minutes about the difference between spiritual intelligence and then the more well-known concept of emotional intelligence?
Great. Well, yeah, so there's kind of it's a good analogy. What is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to draw on emotional resources and information to help manage, regulate our own and others' emotions. What is spiritual intelligence? By analogy, it would be the ability to draw on and embody spiritual resources and qualities in a way that helps us function in our daily life and in all spheres, be it leadership, relationships, at work, etc. So what are these spiritual resources and qualities? These would be qualities like purpose or service or gratitude, beauty, joy, forgiveness, compassion, integrity, higher self, etc. So there is some correlation and overlap between emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, and that both of them involve some self-awareness and self-knowledge. So emotional intelligence, we're aware of our emotions. Am I angry, sad, glad, etc. There are these primary emotions, and then how to regulate them. And spiritual intelligence involves knowing ourselves at a deeper level, which is knowing our essence, our spirit, our ground of being. But obviously, when we are in touch with our essence and our ground of being, we tend to be more self-regulated. We tend to have what we might call equanimity or inner peace. So my research and others have shown that there's small to moderate correlation between emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, but they both uniquely contribute to leadership and are in a way complementary. So I hope that makes sense.
Well, it does, and it gets me a little bit curious. So what I hear you saying is they're only moderately correlated. So it could be possible for someone to have a high spiritual intelligence and a not so high emotional intelligence.
Yes, for sure, for
And I'm
sure.
curious to hear which of them has a better outcome as far as leadership outcomes, Yossi.
Well, as I said, both are important, both contribute. In my own research, the effect size of spiritual intelligence on effective leadership was larger than emotional intelligence. I think it explained like 47% of the variance for those of you who know statistics and so on, while emotional intelligence explained only like 40% of the variance in the outcome. But combined, they explain 67%. So that means that they are both uniquely contributing on their own, and together they contribute more. but the effect size of spiritual intelligence was larger. There was another research where they looked at emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence and its effect on the financial outcome. So they looked at leaders and they led organizations and wanted to see the spiritual intelligence translate into better financial outcome. And they found that the leader's spiritual intelligence did translate into higher better financial outcomes, but emotional intelligence did not. So, but I'm sure you can find multiple things. And my point is not to say this is more important than that, but to say both are important. And certainly spiritual intelligence is very powerful and as important as spiritual intelligence, as emotional intelligence.
So for those leaders who are already, doing work on emotional intelligence, adding that extra level of attending to their spiritual intelligence can increase their success even more.
Yeah, and they get more inspired and more empowered and more connected. And and so it's both pays off at the leadership level, but there's also a lot of research now that shows it has many benefits in many dimensions of our life, including satisfaction with life, quality of life, productivity, and even relationship success and quality and satisfaction. So spiritual intelligence, what I've seen with my clients as they develop it, they get more empowered, more passionate, more purposeful, and more effective as leaders, but their life are improved. They're more present at home with their children, with their families. They live with greater intention and sense of purpose. So these qualities permeate our life and it helps our role as leaders, but throughout our lives, these enable us to have more meaningful, greater gratitude, greater satisfaction, more compassion, more connectedness, and so on.
So I heard you mention something that intrigued me about inspiration, and the subtitle of your book, Yosi, is How to Inspire by Being Inspired. So could we talk a little bit about the connection between effective leadership? Sorry about that. Can we talk a little bit about the relationship between being an inspirational leader and being an inspired leader?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think first of all, just to highlight what is the role of leadership. Leadership usually inspire, and that's differentiated from being a manager. And one of my first Harvard Business School cases, we looked at what's the difference between being a manager and being a leader. And managers control and direct resources and make decisions, but leaders inspire. Now, what is the root of the word inspire? Is spirit. And what is spirit? The life animating force. So leaders effectively breathe life and passion and purpose and cohesion into their organization. So that's kind of in the root to inspire. But lots of leaders come to me, look for coaching or how to be more inspiring. You could take classes in being a powerful speaker and so on, and you can add all kinds of tricks to your bag, and those are good skills to have. But fundamentally, we can't really inspire anybody unless we're first inspired ourselves. So, the relationship is the cause is being inspired when we are called by a vision, by a sense of purpose, by a call to serve something. Then we're inspired by that vision, by that purpose. And then when we communicate that, it draws others to us that are aligned with that. And then we have a cohesive team and a community that's aligned around a common mission and vision and a set of values. So, but it starts with getting inspired and passionate and rooted in ourself, in our depth. And that's where our power is. We're connected to the core essence of our being, our life force. And from that comes our passion and our sense of purpose. And then when we communicate it to others, they resonate and are drawn to it.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think especially Yosi, and I'm curious for those who might want to type in the chat. Have you noticed a time when your own inspiration has overflowed to others to inspire them as well, if you're a leader or if you're not? That's something really important to remember. So what I hear you saying, Yosi, is that the way that we can inspire others is to be tapping into our own deep sense of purpose and our own values.
Yeah, very much so. And I just want to also highlight that in a sense, we're all leaders, whether we have a formal role as leaders in an organization or a company, a community, a church, a nonprofit, the government, whatever it is. But in our families, in our everywhere, our communities, we're influencing each other. And to the extent we embody and are passionate about our values, people sense that integrity, sense that vibrancy, that frequency, and that naturally affects them. We all connected. We have mirror neurons, and we all influence each other emotionally and otherwise. If you walk into a room and someone is sad, before you say anything, you feel the energy in the room. If you walk into a room and someone's angry, you feel that. If you walk into a room and someone is joyful, and they're radiating this quality of joy and beauty and gratitude, that has an immediate effect energetically. And I could see that in your face right now on how there's a sweetness, there's a softness, there's a joy, and that's affecting me. So we're constantly affecting each other, and that's super important to recognize.
I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to that impact that we can have, as you said, Yosi, of someone walking into a space and picking up on what the energy is and being influenced by it. Well, let's talk for a moment then about the connection between effective leadership and spiritual intelligence. You started to talk a little bit about that in my follow-up to the first question, but I'd love to dig into it a little deeper. And just quickly in the chat, Tina says, it is contagious indeed, and she loves this concept.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm grateful and delighted that some of this is resonating. So, but back to your question, sorry, remind me, is like, what's the connection between spiritual intelligence and
And leadership effectiveness, yes.
leadership effectiveness? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this isn't, shouldn't be too much of a surprise when you think about these qualities that I'm talking about as part of spiritual intelligence, which would be purpose and service and vision and gratitude and joy and beauty and integrity and presence and intention and higher self. There's plenty of research now that has shown from many domains in leadership development that humble leaders are actually powerful leaders. It may seem paradoxical. We can be humble and confident at the same time. We clearly want leaders that we can trust, that have integrity. We want and need leaders that trust in the future and have a sense of hope and optimism. We want leaders that imbue the organization with a sense of purpose. Well, these are all the same thing: purpose and vision and joy and gratitude and connectedness and integrity are all part of spiritual intelligence. So it's kind of no surprise that these qualities lead to better leadership outcome. A study by the international consulting firm Bain and Company surveyed, I forget, like 2,000 employees across hundreds of companies to look at what are the qualities that inspire employees. And first they found that inspired employees are twice as productive as just people that are going about doing their job to earn a paycheck, etc. And then when they looked at what were the top qualities that these leaders had, it had to do with service orientation, humility, centeredness, connectedness, high quality listening. So this was done by one of the top consulting firms that are helping global companies become more profitable. And lo and behold, the qualities map, over half the qualities map directly to the qualities of spiritually intelligent leadership. And
yeah, that's amazing and powerful. So, for those who are listening and really want to get practical, I know the book talks about the importance of learning new habits. So, those new habits can help us develop spiritual intelligence. Could you share a few examples of what the habits we might need to practice? It's only the 17th of January. There is plenty of time for us to build new habits into the new year, and I would love to hear from you how we can do that with spiritual intelligence.
Sure, and the rest of the year and the rest of our lives. So,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I think the first one is intention. I think intention is so important because unless we point ourselves in a direction, so the first thing, like we want to build new habit, that's an intention. But the concept and principle of intention is so important, and we can apply it in everything. You walk into a meeting with someone, you're doing a one-on-one with someone on your team. What is your intention? If you are clear about your intention, I want to build rapport, I want to hear them, I want this, that's kind of like your rudder. And in life, we're in a stormy sea, it throws us off, but you need your intention to come back and say, oh, but my intention is this, that, and the other. And then we can return to being on track for why we're having that meeting. Or, I'm at dinner with a friend or a family member. My intention is to connect and be present with them. All of a sudden I get a text message or something and an alert, and I start looking at my phone and I can get distracted. But if I am rooted in my intention, I'll say, oh, no, 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 but my intention is to connect with Becky. So I'm going to put my phone down. So being clear about our intention, we're going into a sales meeting, whatever, it's super important. And then being present, how to be present, present to our intention, present to ourselves, present to the other person. That's a habit, like coming back to presence, to ourselves, to the connection, to the moment. The other one would be vision, envisioning what we're doing whenever we set on a task, whether it's a small task like a meeting or our goals for the coming year. We want to envision the outcome. And that conditions our brain and sets the neural pathways that we're going to be successful. And as we condition ourselves to believe that that's possible, then lo and behold, we're more likely to get there. So those are just small examples of intention, presence, and visioning. The other one would be practicing gratitude every day. The intention of being grateful and sharing appreciation. Those would be, but I would recommend people take one quality and focus on it for a month. And then when you've mastered that, move on to the next one. And, the book is laid out with each quality, and there are exercises and case studies. So yeah.
So I know some people will choose like a word for the year, which, could serve as an intention. And it almost feels like following the practices in the book or the habit creation in the book, you could choose a word for every month. It could be gratitude, or it could be beauty, or it could be
Joy.
joy.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And making
Yeah.
that the intention of the month.
Yeah. Then that becomes the North Star. It's like, okay, joy. How can I bring more joy to my life today? I can put on a good piece of music. I can dance while I'm cooking. I can, go for a walk in the woods, whatever it is that brings us joy. I can play with my son or my daughter,
Hmm.
so and all of a sudden at the end of the month, like, wow, I was more joyful this month. Lo and behold, surprise, surprise. Not such a big surprise.
Well, so I want to do a quick check-in with those who are listening as Yosi is talking about the habits in the book of intention or visioning or presence or gratitude. Which of those are resonating with you, and which might you choose to implement after this call and as you go into the rest of the year and the rest of your life? So if one of those stands out to you, or one of those spiritual, intelligent leadership qualities stands out, I'd love to hear. So Randy says presence is his focus word for the year. Tina said presence also. Belinda also being present because there are always distractions. Crystal also presence. So Amy says intentionality is her word for 2024. And Cora says presence, resilience, presence. This word presence is really resonating today. Randy suggests that we should all form a presence support group. Michael says remaining authentic. So for those of you who do want to connect in community after this event, we do have a LinkedIn group where you can connect with Yosi and you can connect with each other, and we could start this conversation about presence and what we can do to fuel more presence in our lives, not only this month, but into the future.
Yeah, but I just want to say that it's kind of interesting that presence is resonating so much, because I think it is the challenge of our age with so much information coming at us, streams, text, email, social media. It's how to be present. And ADHD is becoming an ever-growing, a challenge to most of us. But as someone else is saying, is they're all interconnected. If you're going to be practice gratitude, you have to be present to the moment to see what to be grateful for, what your intentions. So, each of them kind of reinforce each other, and over time, it just kind of becomes a snowball that grows in all these dimensions.
That's an amazing observation. And I want to be present in this moment and be grateful for all of you who are sharing your feedback as we go throughout this conversation, because it makes the event much more rich. So thank you to those of you who are sharing your feedback. So Yosi, I know in a few moments we're going to invite a special guest and we're going to dive into the topic of spiritual intelligence and artificial intelligence. But before we do that, I'm wondering if we can talk for a moment about how leaders can use spiritual intelligence to get inspired and inspire others while creating a cohesive community that is passionately aligned around a shared sense of purpose.
Well, as I said, first, we need to connect with our depth, with our life force, our spirit, and from there we can reflect on and find what are our gifts. What has life gifted us that we're grateful for, and that we want to share and bring to service. So when we find our own sense of purpose, by understanding what are unique gifts that come to us from our life force, life is inviting each of us, has given us gifts, whatever it is. We're smart in math, or we're a great singer, or we're great listener. Each of us have unique gifts that life has given us, and naturally we want to actualize and express those gifts. So we want to connect with our sense of purpose and how we want to be of service to life more broadly, and then line that up with the organization that we're in. So when our personal sense of purpose lines up with the organization and the team that we're part of, then we're living in alignment. And when we're in alignment, we have the most power. We're not fragmented, we're not divided. And then we have a vision of how that purpose is going to show up, both for us and for that community, that team. And then we share that vision, and people are going to be called to want to manifest that vision. And that kind of calls us from the future. And then everybody is lined up behind this vision, behind that sense of purpose. But it starts with connecting with our depth, with our life force, with our spirit, asking ourselves, what are we here for? What are our gifts? How do we contribute?
That's super helpful. I'm going to own I wasn't present. I was looking for Emmett Shear and I don't see him here.
Okay.
So Emmett, if you're here, if you could use the hand raise function to pop yourself up to the top of my screen, or maybe you're signed in with a different name. So this tells us how important presence is. And Yosi, while we're trying to sort that all out, tell me why you think it's so important to tie these ideas of spiritual intelligence and artificial intelligence for the times that we're in our world.
I'm sorry, I got distracted myself trying to figure out if Emmett's on and texting him. So your question, why do I think it's important to tie these ideas of
Yes, why did we want to bring this topic to the forefront today?
About artificial intelligence and spiritual intelligence? Because
yes.
There's so much talk about artificial intelligence right now, and then there's the questions: is it going to obsolete humanity? What is it, a threat to humanity? And so I think these are important questions about what's the relevance of spiritual intelligence in a world that's more and more powered by artificial intelligence. And I would argue is that spiritual intelligence becomes that much more important as machines develop greater and greater cognitive intelligence. So we can't just say, oh, I'm good at reading and comprehension. Machines could do that. So what's going to differentiate us on humanity? And Emmett says he is online now. Yeah.
I'm bringing him over. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so just as you're saying that, Yossi, it's really interesting to differentiate between cognitive intelligence, which a machine can increase, and spiritual intelligence, which a machine can't replicate. So I'm going to let the two of you talk.
Okay, great.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Emmett.
Thanks,
Wow.
Emmett. Good to see you. So let me just briefly introduce Emmett. Emmett is an entrepreneur and a visionary. He was the founding CEO of a company called Twitch, which he built from a startup idea to a company with over $2 billion in annual revenues, thousands of employees, and hundreds of millions of users worldwide as a global community. He about a year ago he retired from that, handed the baton to his successor, and has been active in the area of artificial intelligence, both as an investor and as an advisor with some of the top companies, including Anthropic, and he was interim CEO at OpenAI, where he helped mediate between the founder, Sam Altman, and the board, and ultimately worked himself out of that role as a testimony of his egoless leadership, which is spiritually intelligent, I would claim. But Emmett has been commenting on the dangers of AI and its potential, and so I'm delighted to have Emmett here with me. So Emmett, we were just starting to talk about, the role of AI and SI and how they relate, and what's the relevance of SI in a world that's going to become more and more empowered by AI.
Yeah. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I think like the thing that's currently happening is that we've figured out how to make very sort of simple planning and recall intelligence, right? It's not great at planning, but it can do a little bit, and it can do a lot of recall. It's very good at recall and summarization, and that, like the way that calculators made doing mental arithmetic less of a deal, or like writing made memorizing epic poetry less important. I think it's there's clearly going to be this higher premium put on other skills. Your ability to rapidly read a large set of information and extract the key points will be less important than your ability to do something with those key points once they're extracted, because you'll be able to get the computer to do the first part for you. But I guess I would say like it does put this greater premium on well, right now emotional intelligence, although I think it's going to get pretty good at that too. And also I think spiritual intelligence and sort of human leadership. I don't think that the trajectory will stop here. Like I think that the truth is we will eventually figure out how to build a co-equal, child AI. I don't know if we will call it an AI by then. I hope we don't. Actually, I think an artificial intelligence I don't want to make an artificial intelligence, right? That sort of is this disembodied pure IQ thing. And that's not, I think that's a good thing to build into the world. But a fellow spirit, a fellow sapient being, I think we'll build one that's a fully or equal eventually.
Okay, but you're saying AI, so to speak, for lack of a better word, emotional intelligence is becoming. I know there are programs that track Zoom calls and can detect emotions through the tone of voice, through the words, the spacing between the words, when there's anger, when there's sadness, when there's whatever. So those things. But the point is, intelligence is multidimensional. We used to think about intelligence more being cognitive. now we understand there are multiple dimensions. So your belief is long term, you know, we can have you know, I don't know what to call it, computers, whatever, man-made things that become more intelligent on many dimensions. But until then, what I heard you say is our emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence become that much more important for us as humans to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, it's both differentiation, also I think leverage, right? Like the more powerful your tools are, the more powerful you are, and the more powerful you are, the more care you have to take about the long-term and second-order consequences of what you do. You know, if you have very little power, you can usually just sort of you can be more myopic because the chances that the thing you do is going to have some wide ramifications are relatively low. And the more powerful you get, the more of a, you know, the more of a need there is to look forward. And so I think it's both. It's both. We do have more ability to leverage those things because, you know, having high IQ is relatively less important versus having a high sort of spiritual intelligence. I think, truthfully, I think they're all more interlinked. It's less binary maybe than that makes it sound. But but I actually think the flip side of it is equally important, that there's a responsibility side of, you know, we're going to go around using these tools to accomplish incredible things. Like soon, I think what we'll see is the first companies that are 1, 2, 3 people and running an entire product. You know, sort of the WhatsApp was kind of like this. They had, I think, like 19 people when they were acquired, right? For running this massive billion user thing. That the ability to sort of do that gets bigger and bigger. And if you have people, that tiny numbers of people with that kind of leverage and ability to impact the world, I certainly hope that they act, you know, in spiritually intelligent
so they
ways.
want to have values and take a holistic view of their impact. So, you know, in that sense, spiritual intelligence is that much more important. Awesome. I know we're touching on a huge topic. We could talk about this for hours, but I do want to open it up. Maybe we can get one question from the audience for you, and
yeah, thank you for being with us, Emmett. I'm going to give a moment for people to add a question. We're going to take one question for Emmett from the audience. But while we're doing that, I do want to let you know, if you're interested in learning and digging deeper into Yosi's work on spiritually intelligent leadership, you can buy Yosi's book today for yourself, your friends, your loved ones, and your colleagues on all the various online retailers. And Wendy's going to put those in the chat. For those of you who have maybe already read the book, the best way that you can help others and spread this idea of spiritually intelligent leadership is to leave your honest review on Amazon and Goodreads, and we would appreciate anyone who's willing to do that today. And another way that you can help us share the idea of the importance of spiritually intelligent leadership is to share on your social media channels, on your newsletter, on your blog, invite Yosi as a guest on your podcast. Any of these will help. Send it out to your email list. And Wendy is putting a link in the chat where we've created some assets to make it easy for you to tell others about this book. So if you take one or more of those actions today or tomorrow, when we send out our follow-up email, and let us know that you've done that, Yosi is going to share with you his spiritually intelligent leadership comprehensive assessment with development tips for free, and it's a $49.95 value. So we hope that you'll take the action today to choose one of these ways to help us spread the idea of spiritually intelligent leadership in the world. And we wanted to get that in front of you. So it looks like I have a question. It looks like there are two. I'm going to go with the first one. Rachel is asking, for Emmett and Yosi, do you think that the folks who are most involved in developing AI are naturally inclined and drawn to the idea and skills of emotional and spiritual intelligence, or are they in relationship with other people who do have those skills?
So I can speak from some actually pretty substantial experience with the people who are in the field. And I would say actually they are remarkably more drawn to that than other people in tech. I found the people who are in at OpenAI, at Anthropic, at the startups, tend to they tend to have meditation practices. They tend to have thought very deeply and read very widely on these topics. They tend to uh, uh, really credit they spend a lot of time thinking about how their cognition works, because what they're trying to do is build something that can copy a piece of it. And so I would say they're like actually some of the most informed people in that area that I've met. And that goes right up all the way up to the leadership level and back down. I think there's the place where I think I've diverged, and I think it's sort of related to this. It's sort of this question of the degree to which thinking is binary or sort of non-dual. I think there's a real tendency in the design of AI stuff for people to get sucked into this idea that there's you have the training data, and then you have the inference. You have the AI is aligned or it's not aligned. It's a yes. These are a series of yes no thoughts about what it means. A person is either sort of an action is either net good or net bad, and I think that's like that's all stuff. Sort of thing is always true in a sense. But I think it's sort of when you start thinking about spiritual intelligence, there's a gap there maybe about being willing to see that maybe not willing to see isn't the right way of saying it, that where there's an occlusion, like where people don't see the level of ambiguity in some of the things they're working on. I would say it's universal. I think that's the place where I would most like to see progress. But generally, actually, I've just been shocked. Like it's deep and wide in terms of people's practice and connection with that. I've been working with this AI startup. They just got back from an offsite in Tibet where they were working with, a serious line of Tibetan masters and talking with them specifically about like, what do you think it would mean to make a spiritually intelligent or enlightened machine? Like, what should we try that? Is that a thing that a direction we should go in? And I think that's actually weirdly not atypical. That's actually like the kind of thing people actually do ask themselves. So I think that's I find that very reassuring.
Yeah, that's very delightful to hear that they have these broader perspectives and aspiring to do good as opposed to just obsoleting jobs and getting rich. So that's hopefully we could stay on track. I know we have the intention, and then as I said, life kind of throws us, and there are lots of pressures and startups from investors and lots of things. So, but anyway, great to have you, Emmett. This, as I said, this is a big topic, and we could talk about that for many hours, but we just wanted to get this thing going. So,
yeah, thank you, Emmett. Take care. So, Yosi, I want to bubble up another question that came in for you from Cynthia. And she said, with much disruption and seemingly division almost everywhere, how can we, in practical ways, start and impact our influence with spiritual intelligence?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question. And I think that's why I am so motivated and passionate about spiritual intelligence, because there's so much polarization in the world, politically, wars, all these issues, environmental risks, and existential risks for humanity. And unless we understand our interconnectedness and our oneness, I don't think I don't know if humanity can survive, because it's just we're focused on our egos, and it's a dog-eat-dog world, and I'm separate from you. And so I think we're in a critical moment where understanding, it's kind of like I call it the Copernican revolution and Galileo. We realized that the Earth is not at the center. When you look at the sky, you see the sun moving, And for the longest time, humanity thought that the Earth was at the center of the solar system, because that's how it looks. When we look at our personal life, our ego, our individual self, is at the center of our universe. And but like the Earth is actually an offshoot from the sun, and it's revolving around the sun, and the sun gives it light and energy and sustaining itself. And so we need to move beyond like seeing ourselves as separate individuals and understand our interconnectedness, and that we need to care for the greater whole that ultimately sustains us, like the way any organ in the body or any cell functions only at its optimal best when the whole organism is doing well. And so understanding our interconnectedness is crucial for us to move forward beyond this polarization. And, you know, that takes a holistic view. It's the ability to have compassion and empathy and listen to someone who has a very opposite view. And it's challenging sometimes. I get triggered, like certain topics that, you know, it's super hard for me to just be open and try to understand others. But that's our task, that's our growth, that's our evolution.
Well, and it sounds like part of it has to do with not making ourselves at the center of our own worlds and thinking about those around us. Is that right?
Yeah, well, all the research is that, you know, actually, paradoxically, people that are more altruistic and more service-oriented are happier. And we're happiest when we're sharing our gifts and helping others and contributing. And when we're like feeling like there's scarcity and I got to get more and more and I don't have enough, we're contracted. There's now neuroscience research that shows that greed is associated with anger and depression. So, you know, of course, we have to take care of ourselves, and that's our vehicle. We have to take care of our car if we're going to drive anywhere with it. So I'm not speaking about, you know, self-denial to the point where we hurt ourselves, but I am speaking about caring for ourselves with the understanding that we're part of a larger system, and what makes us happy is contributing and seeing the larger organism thrive and do well.
Yeah, that's really helpful to a good reminder that when we're focused on others, we will have more joy. I have a question here from Ron, and he's wondering how educators could introduce the concept of spiritual intelligence in the classroom.
Well, I think it's a great question. I would have to think about it more to provide a meaningful answer, but you know, I think it's not different than emotional intelligence. But the first thoughts that come to me is like working with kids to help them realize what's their gifts. So that would help children from early on reflect on what are my gifts? How has life gifted me with certain things, and how do I want to use it? And when am I most joyful when I apply those gifts and actualize them? And so that starts to invite children from a young age to have a sense of purpose, to have a sense of value, and a desire to use those qualities to help others and express them in the world. So, but you know, lots of other practices of compassion and empathy and gratitude. You know, whether we call it spiritual intelligence or not, over time we can introduce that, but it's helping cultivate these qualities, these virtues. And these virtues have been acknowledged by all the world's wisdom traditions for many, many generations, for millennia. Compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, honesty, integrity, service, you know, these are qualities that we've been talking about as humanity, and understanding that that's what contributes to high quality life and thriving society.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Cora's adding a really great suggestion here. I mean, it's formed in a question, but I think it's a suggestion. She says, would modeling spiritual intelligence to children be a good start? And, you know, certainly we could model spiritual intelligence to anyone around us.
Yeah.
So what also shows up for me, Yosi, is that throughout the book, you provide all of these transformative exercises. And I'm curious whether those exercises could be applied in a group setting or in the workplace. Or also if you can just let our listeners know, if they're not familiar with the book, how these exercises can be used.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I mean, for each quality, there I provide, I provide a case study working with clients and how they start with a challenge and a thing, and how using spiritual intelligence going within, they find the resources to deal with that, and how that quality starts to manifest itself and how it addresses the challenge at hand. And then there's what's called your turn, these exercises to do, and people could do them on their own. And the key about the whole book is that spiritual intelligence is not cognitive intelligence, not just reading and understanding the concept, it's practicing it. So these exercises are critical. And I think having a circle of people practicing would be great, because we can all use the support and encouragement, but people could do them on their own. It's just takes 10, 15 minutes or even less to do something. And you could just see for yourself how you start out with a problem and you feel contracted, and you use some of the tools that I suggest. And I've heard lots of people learn to do that on their own. So yeah, bring it to work, bring it to a work circle, have a spiritual intelligence buddy that you work together through these are all great ideas.
So a comment from Arthur, he says, while we're all still wrestling with the ratio of how much in-person office time is the standard, the interconnectedness stands out of what's missing with remote work. And I definitely can resonate with that, Arthur, of is it harder to be connected in our, remote and hybrid work world, Yosi? What do you think?
Yeah, totally. And it's so much more important, in the US now, that's a recognition of the loneliness epidemic. And for most people, work is been and is our primary community. We spend more of our waking hours being present with other people through work than anything else, including our families or what have you. So how do we feel community? How do we feel connectedness with people at work when we're working remotely? So again, it takes intention, and it takes practices to do that. Like, at the beginning of a meeting, how to connect with someone, ask them about their day, about their weekend, whatever. Make eye contact, be present, create employee lunches once a week where people can check in, or at the beginning of a meeting, go around the room, so to speak, around the Zoom, and ask each person to share 3 words about their emotional state in the moment. And then people feel like, oh, people care about me, they're listening to me, and so on. So it's more challenging to do that over video connection, but our neural networks, I mean, our mirror neurons still work, and we still feel resonance and connection. It just takes more intention and more presence. And it's more of a challenge. You don't just go to the coffee machine and get coffee and bump into someone. You have to be conscientious about how to connect with people, and not just, okay, I'm on Zoom and I'm going to check email, and while I do that, because nobody's paying attention, and I'm multitasking, and I just doing the little bit that I need to do, but I don't really need to pay attention to how people are feeling, or do I pay attention to their facial expression, to their mood? Do I, so these are all things we need to be more cognizant of and mindful, and to overcome the limitations and the challenge.
Well, it seems to go back to the idea that resonated earlier in the call about presence. And when you do have that opportunity working remotely to connect in with others, if you are present in the moment, you'll be more likely to fuel that connectivity. So as we start to wrap up the hour, I would love to hear in the chat, what's the most important takeaway that you have that you're going to implement as a result of today's meeting? I think the most powerful conversation for me, Yosi, was when we were talking about the new habits that people could begin to develop, those habits of intention and presence and visioning and gratitude and appreciation. So if you want to take a moment as we're wrapping up the hour together to put something in the chat about how you plan to move forward with the learning from today, we would love to see that. And then as we move to the end of our event, I do want to remind you that if you choose to buy the book today for yourself, for a friend, for a colleague, or even buy the book in bulk to study in your organization with some SI buddies, Yosi is going to provide today a free assessment tool with development tips. The same also is true if you choose to leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads today, or to share the book in some way with your networks. We would love to have you engage with us in one of these three ways, because you can then become an ambassador of spiritually intelligent leadership in the world. As Yosi told me originally when we met, that his goal is for this idea to be ubiquitous, for it to be known, as well as the idea of emotional intelligence. We need others who will start to talk about these concepts with us.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be terrific. I just want to highlight, somebody wrote here that being connected with these spiritual intelligence practices, we're connected to our source, our life force, and through that we actually feel more connected to everybody else. So that's a beautiful thing that someone is highlighting here.
amazing. Cora said that she likes the idea of working on one quality a month. Tina says that she's going to finish the book and can't wait. And she's going to start her next meeting by asking members to share how they are feeling in the moment, 3 emotional words. Cynthia says connectedness, looking into inner self and developing new habits. And Ron says, start by going deep with yourself. When leaders get better, everyone wins. So Yosi, I'm wondering if you could share some parting wrap-up thoughts with us.
Oh my God. Well, it's just delightful to be here, and I'm enjoying your smile in this moment. I'm just delighted that there was so much resonance from people here, that it's very heartening and gratifying to know that what I'm talking about actually seems to resonate for people in terms of developing these qualities of presence and intention. And people want to be connected to ourselves. We want to be connected to others, because when we're connected and we're inspired, we're empowered, everybody wins, as somebody said. And yeah, it's just delightful and makes me hopeful and optimistic about our future, and knowing that there are resonant souls that can, we're each Wi-Fi extenders and transmitters of this energy. So we need this network of spiritual, intelligence to permeate our planet. And I think we'll be in a better world. So thank you all for being, ambassadors or emissaries or Wi-Fi extenders of good energy and goodness in our planet.